if we have time, come back to that later. I'm going to set this aside for a minute. I'm going to kind of hold on to this. Are we still live? Yeah. And so now it's my turn to work. First of all, congratulations and respect and admiration for you all. As I said, you've invested a Thursday evening or afternoon, late afternoon here. And you did so in spite of that title. I mean, that says a couple of things. It's a very smart audience. The fastest way to weed out a whole bunch of people is start putting arithmetic operators in the title of a lecture. It's you here. And you're obviously self-confident. But you're also pretty brave, I would suggest. I'm assuming that you didn't necessarily, from the ad that I saw anyway, when it said last lecture, that didn't necessarily tell you that you were able to leave this auditorium. This could be it. And you came anyway. Here you are. Hats off to you. So thank you again. But to make it a little more clear, less mysterious, and people have been bugging me and asking, what is that? And I've said, you'll hear now that there's a 500-year story behind those numbers. And it's my specific 500-year story, as is yours. That's the number of people, if you assume that a generation is roughly 25 years in terms of life cycle, humans, procreation. Going back 500 years and 20 generations, at the top of that list, so my parents are 2, my grandparents are 4, great-grandparents are 8, 1,048,576 would be everyone above me. The +1 is my mother because all the others are no longer on this earth. And so I have a smattering of DNA from that many people starting roughly around the time Columbus discovered America. And why did I pick 1492 or the year 1500? Well, that's because Columbus and I think the discovery of this country and place that we call home, Canada, it took a lot of bravery. It took some maybe craziness. It definitely took energy and foresight. It took saying poo-poo to the naysayers to strike out onto what some people thought was a flat ocean you were going to fall off the end of. So 500 years ago, that many people divided up into pairs. I'm simplifying to make the point because we could go back further, yes. It's a narrow triangle that way. It becomes wider when you look down past yourself. So my 2 kids are the first 2 in what becomes wider because I'm, in that case, from my point downwards, you're counting more people. But looking up, it's just a 2 by 2. So there's a lot of DNA that's been accumulated into each and every one of us from people who are no longer with us. There are also lessons that get passed down. So I've talked about 20 generations. That's 20 generations worth of lessons and life and learning and adventures and experiences that your parents or grandparents, if you're lucky enough to have great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, them too, on their knee. You've gotten DNA from these people who've gone before, and you've also gotten ideas and life lessons. And my life lesson, and the big one that I kept teaching the kids from probably when they were too young to understand what I was saying, is that perspective is everything. And I'll come back to that later, and that was part of the exercise that we did, asking you what you would be talking about. Perspective is everything. It has a lot to do with why there are a lot of conflicts in different parts of the world and over the course of history, also why there's a lot of progress and hope and optimism in equal measure, hopefully more in balance on the positive. The other thing about perspective that I would bring to this equation, but I didn't, in the title you're not going to do all of this at once. This comes from a tax lawyer. So don't groan, the guy is Donald Goldsmith. He was in the Scientific American with an article last month, March of 2012. Fascinating piece on the lifespan, say, or the expected, based on physics, the universe. So if you take the Big Bang as the beginning of time and you go forward, you're looking at about between 100 billion and 100 trillion. big wide margin there, but of time before the last star burns out. Now, considering that we're approximately 13.5 billion, 13.7 billion years past the Big Bang, if it's the outer end of that limit, we've got 99.9 trillion years left to go. And combined with what happens in terms of us as a human family, if you take some say 6 million, some say 2, some say less than that, length of time that humans or Homo sapiens have been on the planet, as a passage of time that's equal to the height of my fingerprint, one of the valleys in my thumb. If you take that and you put that down on the kind of time frame that we're talking about for the universe, and you added those together, you would take the universe scale would be not to the other side of campus and not to Vancouver. It wouldn't even be to Shanghai. Someone will have to check my math and the calculations, and you'll have to measure my fingerprint. But that distance would be out to somewhere around Mars. Okay, so that kind of time scale, when you think that humans have been around for as long as the height of my, that distance, means that we've got a lot more of us to go. And we've got things that can't even be imagined. From 500 years ago, Columbus and our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents couldn't imagine things as simple as the cell phone that I carry on my hip. They couldn't imagine things like the electricity coursing through the lights here, and so on. And so the perspective is a little bit daunting, but to me it's also hugely optimistic. Because in spite of all of the negatives and diseases and so many risks and issues that we as humanity have come through, here we all sit together tonight, small subset of us, and we're looking forward to the next, if you're one of the new graduates or someone in their first or second year, you're looking forward to a whole lifetime ahead of you and a bunch of adventures and so on. I've had my share of adventures, and I could regale you with some of those stories now, but I don't think, or I'm assuming that's not necessarily why you came here, and if it is, we can get to them, to your questions in the Q&A. But the perspective and the time frame makes for a lot of other things to become a lot easier in terms of decision making. So, Shane and I, in the introduction that you heard, we dove into some circumstances that people thought were pretty hopeless, or that they thought we were crazy to take on. And as luck would have it, as hard work would have it, as we hoped, some intelligence was brought to bear, and energy, and lessons learned from mom and dad, one of which was, thou shalt go to university. So we learned, that's why we all four ended up there, here. You bring a lot of ingredients from your life to bear, and if you do that with other good people and partners, Bern and Mike are in the audience, I know now, I can't quite see through the lights, but you can accomplish things that leave the world a better place, and that was one of the lessons growing up on the farm. You inherited a certain amount of legacy and assets and things to kick you off of. You stand on the shoulders of giants, and you basically, without being told, you owe it to those who come after you. I owe it to my kids to give them the best starting point I can, so that now it won't take 500 years, by the way, because the triangle gets broader more quickly, it'll only take 375 years for there to be 1,048,000 underneath me. But for the benefit of those people, each of you, stand at the pivot point of a whole, the rest of humanity. The rest of humanity is sitting here waiting for what it is you all are going to contribute. And so what I was trying to say a moment ago is that the decisions you make in your life as you go along become a lot easier if you do it in the context of, is it really that daunting? Am I at the end of my life here yet or not? If no, if I can assume, or I'm entitled to think I might wake up tomorrow morning, then you will be able to do a lot of good things, whether together or singly on your own solo ventures. And that's basically what I would like you to take away from here. You owe it to yourselves, and you owe it to those that come after you, given the perspective and the fact that there are millions to follow, and probably billions or trillions, and we'll cover the cosmos, you owe it to yourselves to do the best you can with whatever it is you've been given. Gifts-wise, intelligence-wise, we've already determined the bravery part that you all harbor. The bravery issue is one that I'm a little, not ashamed to talk about. When I was first asked in January to do this lecture, what we thought might be more interesting, because it's the last lecture, would be to have my sister Tanya do the lecture. Now let me tell you a little bit about bravery. Tanya was born a year later than me exactly to the day, so fantastic first-year birthday present. And we always celebrated our birthdays on the same day. And we grew up on the farm doing chores together, not really talking about that much. That was just something that had to happen. There was no other two ways around it. Everyone had their responsibilities.